Hi, this might come off as a rant, so I'm going to ask Mrs. Kaboose to think about putting this as its own video. So if you, but my intention is to just give you some information that I wish I had when we were hiking. I'd been told by all kinds of people and read in several books, you know, that online, not online, but retailers, equipment people, you know, really very helpful, especially if they know you're through hiking. And I've bent over backwards, and I've heard some of that on the trail talking through hikers over the years, and some early on this trip, and heard really great things about all the manufacturers at trail days. So one of the things I'd heard was that Merrell, if you call them and say you're through hiking and you've gone, you know, X amount of miles, halfway or whatever, that you're using their shoes, that they'll send you another pair of shoes to support your hike. Now that seems really above and beyond, but I've had 3 people tell me that. And so we got close to Harper's Ferry, and Mrs. Kaboose called and said that's what they'd heard, and you know that Sassafras is using the merrells, and she really loves them. They're working great. They're still looking pretty good, but they'd heard they'd had this practice, and she was going down to see her in a week or so. What they think, and the person she talked to said sure, no problem. Asked about the hike and asked about Sassafras' hike for hunger, and said, well, you know, we'll send them out, send you an email. Well, you know, a few days goes by and no email, so Mrs. Kaboose calls back and asked, you know, what was going on, and talked to somebody else who was, as she says, it wasn't very nice, and said, show us a policy that we do that, and we're not going to do it. She goes, this is what we've been told, and this is what the person she talked to 3 or 4 days ago had said, and we were just checking. And so they're not nice and said we weren't getting any shoes, and that's fine. You know, there is no Santa Claus, and we get that, but it'd been nice that they just said that up front. So no free shoes for Merrell. You gotta buy your shoes, wear them out, and buy another pair. Makes perfect sense. So on the topic of shoes, so she goes to EMS, which is our local, you know, it's the best, you know, outfitter retailer near us, and there's 2 in the area we live at, and the staff there have always been very nice and very helpful. So she goes in to buy the shoes, knows the size she's looking for, and also Sassafras had met a through hiker who had given her old lecky poles to the Black Diamond people. They gave her a brand new pair of these collapsible women's trekking poles. And, you know, Sassafras has really thought they were really cool from the beginning. So Mrs. Kaboose and I thought it'd be a great idea at the halfway point to, you know, reward her with a new pair of hiking poles, because her other hiking poles are about 4 or 5 years old, and they've been mine at one time. And I mean, they're Black Diamond, they work great, but it'd be nice to do that. So, and the tips had broken off on both of them, and we couldn't find a outfitter. We called all around that we'd be going through that had the tips, so figured might as well just give her a brand new pair of poles. So she goes to EMS, and I guess the young guy that's working at the shoe department says they don't have her size, but they have a half a size smaller, and she should get those. And she goes, no, you know, she's hiked 1,000 miles in this size. This is the size she needs. He goes, a half a size doesn't make any difference. You should buy these. And really kind of pushed her. And then also, we checked online, and they, you know, EMS still had the shoes. That's where we bought them originally. And they had online the women's trekking poles too. Well, they didn't have the women's trekking poles. And the guy really tried to push her to buy another pair, saying there weren't any difference. And she goes, no, that's what we want. And in the past, they've been really good about ordering them and having it at the store in a day or whatever, or shipping to our house, or I mean, they really bent over backwards and nothing. So she left and was very upset and went home, and because it was over $100 for the 2 of them, you know, easily, there was free shipping over $150, whatever it was. And so she ordered it online from EMS, and they were at her house the second night. So she brought those down, and that's great. So it's really kind of sad that the brick and mortar store doesn't give the support it had, so it's hard to support that. So that's my story on that, but I do have more. So while we're talking about the Black Diamond, the day before we got to Harper's Ferry, I noticed that one of my tips had broken off, and I've been checking them because, Sassafras broke off pretty early, and they were wearing down. So again, no, this is as my wife was leaving Harper's Ferry, so there hadn't been time to order them or go. We went to the one outfitter, and Harper's Ferry didn't have anything. So said, well, and we called all the outfitters we'd be passing through in the next, few towns, and nothing. So she calls, she gets home and calls Black Diamond, and we'd heard the mixed reviews about Black Diamond. Last year I'd heard several people that they really bent over backwards and sent out free stuff, and above and beyond. And this year a thru hiker I know said they were sending them free lower extensions of his trekking poles that are broken, but they weren't at the outfitter that they said they were sending to when he got there, so he never got them. His wife had to reorder them, and it ended up being a real hassle. So she calls them, and they go, oh yeah, they've changed the style. Now there are different tips that have these screw-on ends, which I think is a good idea. We'll see. And they said at $15 we'll send you the lower ends, and they'll be there at the Doyle in Duncannon, and they'll be there in 3 days. And that was 6 days before we got there. So I got the Doyle yesterday. Hey, we should have this package. It should have been here 3 days ago. Sorry, no package. Wife calls Black Diamond. Oh, because of forest fires in the Rockies, everything was delayed. They should be there today. But they said they'd send a confirmation, shipping number, all that other business, and they never had, so there's no way for her to track that. So, long story short, later in the day, they arrive. We're happy. Open up the box. They're carbon fiber ends with the new tips on. Well, that's odd, but carbon fiber, my poles are aluminum. Kind of neat. So go back up to the room, take the old ends off, try to put it on the new ends. They just don't fit. They're too big. Almost broke the middle shaft trying to get them on there. So I say, all right, well, we'll take off the old tips, and we'll take off the tips off of these ends and put them on the poles. We'd be good to go. Too bad we just didn't get the tips, because it'd been easier and the package would have been smaller and la-di-da. But that's what Black Diamond did. We had looked online, and REI and a couple places had these replacement tips with the new style. They're like $9. But these new tips are like glued on there or something. I just couldn't get them off. And so my wife called, and she'd given him the model of the trekking poles, the trail ergos, and all this other business. And the person she talked to this time goes, oh no, those ones we shipped you, they would never fit. But because there was never that email confirmation of her phone call, they said they couldn't confirm that she hadn't given them the wrong information. She said, come on. And they said, well, if you ship those back, we'll give you the credit, the $15 credit. Well, because they're the ends, and it's a big long box, the shipping cost from the post office was almost what we paid for them, so that was ridiculous. So she said, well, just, can we get the right tips, the right pull? Oh yeah, we'll send them to you. That'll be $27.95. $27.95. The other ones were $15, and they were carbon fiber. Da da da. Well, so she calls me back. I go, that's crazy. Call them back. So finally, after just talking to 4 people, and she said, terrible. They just weren't nice. For $15 or $16 at Port Clinton in 3 days at the post office should be new tips. I'll let you know. It's kind of frustrating. And the issue with the tips are that with the carbide tips on there, they really grip well on the rocks, and I really feel secure. And 50 and my balance isn't what it used to be. And with just the end of the rubber that's wearing down, it's kind of slippery. So I kind of feel it's a safety issue for me. So I'd like to get the tips on as soon as I can. And we're in Pennsylvania, and it's rocky. So then my last big rant is with Sundog Outfitters in Damascus, and a little bit with Big Agnes. So I don't know if I mentioned this, but we went into Damascus. I had this bright idea, had been cooking in the back of my head since we started, that this new Big Agnes UL Scout 2, it's like a single wall pup tent kind of deal, weighs 1.5 pounds, would be great for us, because the Fly Creek UL2, the foot end is real narrow, and Sassafras squirms quite a bit, and when it's been raining and humid, she pushes me over my foot box of the sleeping bag, is a touch of the side, and condensation develops, and the down back got a little dampened. A little anal about keeping the down dry, so I thought this bigger room would be great. Well, so I buy the tent. Just to let you know, a single wall tent without any bug netting on the door doesn't work on the Appalachian Trail, at least in Virginia this time of year. The condensation was terrible. It literally rained on us inside the tent, even though I'd wake up 3 times a night and try to wipe it down, and the sleeping bags were soaked. So I said, well, I'll open up the front door to get some ventilation. Well, there's no bug netting on the front door, so you're wide open, and every bug in the territory got in there and just ate Sassafras up. And she was one, hey, we're walking into a bunch of people here. Hey guys, how you doing? I'll stop. So I'm back. Hopefully Mrs. Kaboose, with her wonderful talents, can splice this together. But so that the bugs ate her up, and she was welts all over, and it still rained inside the tent. And epic failure. So tell my wife that we had bad cell reception, so it's hard out here to contact these manufacturers, because cell reception is just so iffy. A lot of times you get cut off and stuff. So Mrs. Kaboose was wonderful and handles these things for me, which, you know, she should get a prize just for that, because none of this has been easy or fun. And Big Agnes says, you know, they have a guarantee. Return it to the retailer. You know, we've used it several times. We had all the tags. I'd sent all that home, you know, the receipts and everything else. So I said, return it to the retailer for a refund. And if not, call us. So call Sundog, and Sundog says, yeah, if there's nothing wrong with the tent, send it to us, and we'll refund your $279.95. So that's great. I'd sent the tent home to my wife during this time, and she sent us our Big Agnes Fly Creek UL2 back, which I have to say, I so much love that tent and can't speak highly enough about it. My recommendation on tents on the Appalachian Trail is a double wall tent with a lot of bug netting. So Sundogs gets the tent. We can tell by the confirmation. They don't contact us. They don't credit the credit card. My wife calls. They say, well, there's nothing wrong with the tent, so we're going to send it back, and you're not going to get a refund. I said, that's not what Big Agnes said. So call Big Agnes. Big Agnes says, we'll have the retailer send us the tent. We can't make them give you credit, but we'll give you credit to Big Agnes merchandise for the purchase price. Well, they say they send it. Sundogs. A week and a half later, Big Agnes hasn't got it. Sundog won't answer calls from my wife. It's just frustrating. So in desperation, my wife calls our credit card company, Chase, explains the situation. She kept all the notes, all the emails, the original receipts, and they were wonderful. They credited our credit card immediately and said they'd deal with it. So don't buy from Sundogs unless you want to keep it. And I guess that's also my message, that, you know, these brick and mortar retailers, especially the small ones, you pay full price, and the service isn't what it used to be, I guess. And if you know what you really want, and realize you're not going to be able to return it. If you shop around, you can get most of this equipment for a third of the cost. So that's my rant. And I guess so. The take home, which I should have just said at the beginning, was there is no Santa Claus. Don't expect to be treated any differently because you're a thru hiker on the Appalachian Trail, and buyer beware. So probably good advice for everybody. So that's it. I'll give you an update on the trekking pole tips when we get to Port Clinton, and that's that.